You hear me, Mitch? Good afternoon, Mitch. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, where are you at a
Well, this is just my backdrop. We ran a big state fair exhibit at the Kentucky
Oh,
State
okay.
Fair.
That's what it looked like, yeah.
And so we had a large exhibit on the Ohio River Way and our work up and down the Ohio River and featuring artists, and just worked out well.
Yeah, good.
Hey, David, I'm here on audio only.
Okay, Joe. Joe is a board member of the Ohio River, or of Green Hollow on the Ohio, and is active with us. And there's two other people just joining us now. Let's see if I can admit. Look at that backdrop. You must be by the Ohio River.
Hey, Lori.
Hey, hi everybody.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting together. This is being recorded, by the way, and this is a nice finance and organizational committee meeting, I think is the name of it. It's our first one, Mitch. So we've communicated by email before.
Yeah.
But just to let you know, we are looking at closing on Monday at 4:30.
Okay.
And so our money's in the bank. We have a cashier's check, and we are waiting for the final title search, which is being done by our real estate agent and the title search people. And so everybody's confident, and Britain will be there on Monday evening to close.
Great.
So we're on our way. And the first big project here is Francis and Lori are on an advisory committee and helping us figure out insurance and all the other legal stuff that we need to do to ensure we are covered. And so we're here to talk really about directors and officers insurance, as well as liability insurance.
So for context, when we set the call up, we were still I think the insurance issue became that much more important because all of a sudden we're closing and about to own something, right? So when we've initially set this call up, we were not of the fortune to have being in a position where we're closing as quickly as we are. So I think the urgency, just in terms of framing the conversation, we have a little bit more urgency than we did 2 weeks ago.
Correct. And that's where I'm at. So
Okay.
I kind of sent everything out, and I don't know what it is, but this week it seems like everybody's out at the carriers, and I'm like trying to, tie up all these things. But I did send David just a sample of, one that came back that you'd be looking at costs in the D&O. The D&O, the directors and officers coverage, is one thing, and that covers obviously, wrongful acts, accusations of the board and everything. But then in your case, you've got the liability for the land, with and without the structures. Okay. So my job is trying to explain to these people at the carrier sites, like, what you guys are doing, what your intent is, what will be the intent going forward in the case of the two structures. But right now we're looking at, kind of like vacant land with two structures on it, undeveloped, but then also, because you are closing, you need the premises liability for the land in addition to the D&O, the directors and officers. Okay. And I've got different carriers that offer different packages, where it's, some carriers, you've got to buy the liability separate from the D&O coverage. Some carriers will also put those together into one package. So it's one policy, one invoice. Okay. I think the one I sent David was from one carrier. Just for the D&O coverage, based on the $1 million, we're looking at about the $435 for the year. That's the pretty much going rate. Is under a $500 minimum premium. Okay. That would be the expense for the foundation, whether it be officers, whether it be board of trustees, volunteers. You guys don't have any employees per se yet. So it's basically just covering you guys acting as a foundation, in case you're accused of or held accountable for any kind of misconduct, misappropriation of funds, anything that you're perceived as doing wrong on behalf of the foundation. Okay. And the big thing the D&O coverage really is, especially in a nonprofit situation, it's the legal defense. Okay. You guys didn't do anything, but you're accused of doing something, and it may take you 8 months in court to prove it.
Mitch,
So that's what the liability is coming from, to include the defense costs.
what's the limit on that, on the D&O?
The current right now is $1 million. You can obviously go up to 5. I feel you guys are in transition, so I don't know that you need to go all gangbusters on this and buy the most expensive option. I think it needs to be reviewed semi-annually to see where you are in terms of how much money you're handling. Right now you've got money in, but you're getting ready to spend it. So then it just becomes, the value of the vacant land. Okay.
Is it automatic renewal? And I say that to a degree. I mean, yes, we need to renew, and I hear what you're saying about making sure we have the right vehicle in place for whatever it is we're doing at the moment. But there are, I don't know how many times I've been on a board and someone says, did anyone renew our insurance? So what,
Yeah.
People assume that just happened for you.
It's direct billed. So right now, in your case, it's going to come to that PO box. Okay. Unless we do something different with mailing address. So whoever's mailing the PO box, you're going to get that. Okay. Now, depending on the carrier, we can select automatic renew based on how you bill. Like right now, this is either a pay in full option, or you can go on monthly EFT. Okay. If you have that set up with your, organization with a bank account to accept EFT payments, we can certainly set it up for automatic withdrawal based on that information. Otherwise, you get a bill directly each year before it comes due. We kind of monitor that to make sure that, hey, is this thing, it's renewing. We're going to send you a notice out. You need to pay by this amount, this date, and then, that way it's there. Okay. Now,
And you give us a chance to renew or to review the policy.
Correct.
As well.
Ideally, I'm going to get the renewal in about, anywhere from 60 to 30 days before you guys actually renew next September. Okay. At that point, our office sends you out a memo saying, hey, anything going on? Here's your renewal coming up. Ideally, we're going to do a 6-month, check-in anyway, at least, just to see where you guys are. Now, coverage wise, when we review that, that's where we may need to make some adjustments. Okay. Your rate based on nonprofit, is based on how much money you're taking in, how much money you're managing, and of course, number of members. Okay.
I'm tired and ready to quit.
Firing questions at you. So in my own mind, I'm thinking about what's going to be happening on the site in the coming months, but I should put aside what is essentially liability insurance outside of this D&O insurance. Because when I heard 1 to 5 million, I'm thinking maybe we should go to 5 million on D&O, but D&O is, I should bifurcate those in my own head.
The D&O is basically the management of your organization.
Okay.
Okay. Are you guys, mismanaging funds? Are you being accused of, not making the right decisions? Right. That kind of thing. The liability for the premises is a whole separate account, and you can go up to as much as you want. Okay. Right now, with there not being much going on, and it sounds like this 60 acres will not be developed at all, in the current, time, other than just assessing the two buildings that are there, getting them secured for, weather and critters, and then just having something in case you guys have, trespassers or whatever else. If anyone gets hurt on the premises.
So
That's the
Does
liability.
that cover if it's a vacant building or if somebody's staying there short term and we have a variety of people there over a month?
Right. So with insurance, everything's based on intent and what you're doing, right? Is it owner occupied, tenant occupied? Is it short-term lease or whatever? Or is it vacant? Okay. I'm thinking your liability that maybe, Francis, you're kind of leaning towards is like, you're going to have a lot of people coming and going, whether it be architects, designers, anyone offering an opinion or professional service. They have their own professional liability and business general liability in place. So that follows them around.
yeah, so let's put the D&O insurance to bed first for a second.
Yeah.
The rate seems fine at $1 million. I think that seems to me anyway, if others are fine with the annual rate for $1 million policy, it seems okay. We may want to consider upping that.
Correct.
Based off of how successful we've been at fundraising. We might wind up with a whole bunch of money soon, and just for our own protections, want to increase that simply because of the fact that we have more money to manage. I think our biggest liability on our D&O insurance is going to be the management of the funds. That's where the liability is. So does everyone concur with that before we go to, okay.
And real quick, just on that, I've got several quotes still coming in. So if I find a better price, better deal, I'm going to present that and go with that option too.
Do you recommend having the exact same, we could have a different D&O carrier than we do other, or you want to ball it all up?
I've looked at it both ways for pricing and coverage. Okay. I have several carriers. So I've asked them, show me if you can do both. I want an option of, if you can do both, does it have to be on two separate policies or one package policy? Okay. I'll check and see if there's pros and cons of each. Normally it's not, it's just a matter of whether they'll do one and the other and bundle it together. Okay.
Francis, I have recommended that we try to get one agent or, one policy, but we have one agent. So, just two checks or one check.
And I've even gone one step further just to say, let's also look at potential of, fundraising. Okay. If you guys do a special event that you're hosting, then sometimes some of these carriers will throw in automatic liability extension for your special events, whether it's at someone's house, whether it's an ice cream social on the land, anything that revolves around you guys having an event with people.
That would be a good piece to add to it.
Yeah.
And just to let everybody know, what I'm going to do is I'm in agreement with you, Francis, that we proceed with this right now. And I'm going to take it to the board and get a immediate vote. And what's our next step if we want to engage you to do this directors and officers insurance?
That's fine.
Information. So you have
the next step is then to get the liability for the premises, which I hope to have for you before closing on Monday.
But Mitch, he's asking if we, what do we need to do to get the D&O policy in place now?
David, I just got to send you the paperwork to sign off on, and then you guys select your payment option, and then I submit it back and bind coverage. And that can happen the same day. What was that?
Why don't you do that for this first version right here? And
yeah,
before we, and if you find something in the next 48 hours before I sign it,
sure.
We'll take the better deal.
Yes.
All right, good. I mean, the closing may not happen on Monday. We really need to lock up D&O insurance. But I agree with one way to avoid forgetting to pay D&O insurance is to have it balled up with the same company that is doing our other insurance. So, okay, liability. There is, so Mitch, just so you're clear, there are well, you're correct that professionals would come in the door with professional insurance coverage. We will have some of those around, but for the most part, we've been a merry band of
Right.
of volunteers. So that adds, in my mind, at least, we don't have a decent road into the property. Water access is an issue. You know, we have to, there's some risk to, you know, it's
And-
more
and that's-
challenging than others.
Right, and that's exactly what these carriers are looking at for exposure wise, right? So yeah, you guys are gonna have lots of ants and people coming and going, whether it be volunteers, groups, educational groups, you know, professional groups that are helping you develop this land, this program is to what you're doing for. But that's what the liability premise is for. Just like
another
under
way
your
of looking
business-
at it, Mitch, I think, is that this first year, our
Right,
job really is to stabilize the buildings and have fewer volunteers and fewer educational programs. There will be some, but you know, we're going to get the place established. There's no bathrooms, so maybe one can look at it as a rustic site with no electricity. So you think it'd be safer. And yes, it is a trail in, but it's a well-maintained old county road that we're working on.
correct. And that's why I said you guys are going to be in developmental phases. And as you guys get, you know, more and more, whether it be access or amenities based on your vision, that's how we, you know, adopt the policy and translate coverage. Right now, it's just basically, you know, liability for the premises for the 60 acres in case someone is injured or other people's property is damaged.
Mhm. What are you recommending for that level amount, Mitch?
Well, you know me, Lori, I'm kind of like, you know, based on what you guys are doing, I don't know what's going to happen in this first year. Okay. Once you guys own, are you immediately taking off with, you know, designers and architects, and are you trying to get in before winter? You know, right now, $1 million may be fine. Okay. I'll certainly price more than that. And then you guys can pick and choose what's worthwhile to you, you know, this first 12 months.
I don't think I would, I think most at this point, everybody's gone up from that $1 million minimum.
Mhm.
I think our minimum should be at least 2 million.
Yeah.
You know, and if we, you know, depending on, and I know the first year is going to be very minimal, you know.
And technically, since this is like
kind of
a, you know, a commercial liability policy for the land, you're going to have that 1 million per occurrence and probably like a $2 million aggregate. So
Yeah.
it'll already be built into there,
Okay.
as opposed to like a personal homeowners or personal property.
Yeah. Who are the carriers you're looking at?
Right now, I'm the one I sent you, David, was with Secura. I'm waiting on Travelers. I think Chubb, AIG is sending quotes. And then I sent it to another broker that basically has a lot more markets than I have in the house. And then they're going to offer, you know, this carriers as well. But I've got about a dozen of them. It's a matter of just, you know, putting your pieces together of the puzzle and saying, okay, this is what you guys need now. Do we do it on 2 separate policies, or can I get one package? And, you know, what's most cost effective based on coverage?
Right. Right. I don't have a, you know, problem with 2 different carriers, because I know that, you know, the renewal is going to come in, you know, in the review. And I mean, I know Mitch personally, and have insurance with him personally myself. And there's always that question of reviewing each year. So I don't, you know, so I mean, if it works out that it's 2 separate policies or 2 different carriers, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I had to jump off to take a call, but yeah, are we looking at, and this is more of a question, or we have instructed Mitch to take a look at historic home or historic site pricing? In other words, the replacement value of it, which I realize seems it is what it is, but for
Right.
us, it has more, it carries more historic value than almost the actual value of the wood, et cetera, to rebuild. Are we studying replacement value from a historic nature? Is that what we asked Mitch to do?
Right
And-
now, it is liability insurance and not insuring the building. But, you know, we can certainly get a price on that, but right now it's just liability insurance.
I've already earmarked that, Francis, for the buildings, and I've explained to the carriers what we have in place now and how it may change or evolve once you guys have done the improvements. So there's two things here. The sentimental historical value is one thing, okay? You have to prove to me what this value is, you know, now and then going forward after, you know, completion. I can certainly go in there and say, I've got two 20 by 30, you know, frame buildings, wood, you know, 1 story, 2 story, whatever, and create some actual cash value for that building structure. Okay. Whether in this case it's going to be, you know, I'm sure it would come back, you know, probably 50 plus, whatever, based on that. But, you know, right now you guys do have the luxury of saying, well, you know, if we want coverage on these buildings now as is, you know, do you want 10,000 or 25? Okay. Do you want to pay for 50? Because once you guys do the improvements, then we can reassess. Now, moving from an actual cash value to a more replacement cost, that's going to be a little bit more challenging because of the amenities that aren't there. Okay. You guys don't have central heat. There's no plumbing. You know, there's no utilities in that sense. And that's what these insurance carriers are looking for. So it definitely narrows the market on what's available coverage wise. Okay. Now, if we go in there and gangbusters and you guys have these things, you know, it sounds like talking to David, you guys are, you know, have some conflicts in sense like, you know, what do you have to do? What do you want to do? What do you don't want to do to keep the historicalness and out of respect of what it is and what it was? You know, how do you don't want to make those changes? So that's kind of left up in the air. But yes, I can go in there and show you, okay, based on this square footage, the construction materials, the building characteristics, this is what actual cash value is. This is what replacement cost would be. And then you guys can make that determination, you know, what's most cost effective for you coverage wise.
Yeah, I would do actual at this point until the improvements are made. And then
yeah, and then that's a suggestion on, you know, I don't know, you know, we don't really insure market value. The land is still yours, okay? In your purchasing agreements, have they put a value yet on the two structures?
No.
So that's where you can kind of pick and choose. I can go and say, okay, like I said, building characteristics, interior finishings, square footage, this is what it's telling me actual cash value is. Whether or not you want to pay for that now or just some amount, that's kind of up to you. And that's also depending on, you know, per carrier. Right now, I can't insure this place like a homeowner's or an office building or something because it's just not there yet. Between the existing, you know, structure, what you guys have to do still, and then of course there's no, you know, utilities and central heat and air. That's what these carriers look for.
So, David, has there been architects in there looking at the building, the cabin?
There has been a contractor and an architect, and they're going out again on Sunday, and their focus now is just making sure the roof is not leaking and basically stabilizing the building and not doing any major renovations. We've also had a conversation with the University of Kentucky School of Architecture and Landscape Design, and they're interested in the building as well. And so that long-term process of how it gets stabilized in the long term, and it does need some foundation work and stuff like that. Hopefully we'll get additional opinion.
My question is, how do you, how do we state this as a historic structure, you know, for that replacement cost, or, you know, because
so Joanne Weeder is working with the Kentucky Historical Society, or the Kentucky Historical, the folks in Frankfurt, and they are starting the process off of a historic registry nomination. And so probably during that process, that will become clearer. We were going to do one of these HAB studies, and they chose to wait a year as it's a much more detailed study.
Okay.
So a commiserate thing to ensure would be something like a log cabin that has a value, historic value. So maybe there's a precedence elsewhere that we could take a look at as to how do you ensure a log cabin?
Right, and based on that idea, that, you know, I have to place that with carriers that allow with their guidelines, right? Some carriers don't do historical properties, some carriers don't do log cabins. Okay.
Mhm.
You guys, you know, speaking, you know, maybe with what Lori, you know, you guys don't have structures that are, you know, in the historic sense, replacement costs to worry about, like if, you know, colonial, you know, federal, Victorian type structure with intricate design and moldings, those kinds of things. Okay.
Right.
That's where the replacement cost really comes into play in, you know, more of a, you know, a metropolitan structure or something. You know, you guys have just walls with a foundation, and, you know, that was designed on what they had and what they wanted, you know, going forward. Okay?
Yes, I totally agree. One thing I will throw into this is I do work on historic tax credits and
Yeah.
what have you as a profession. The issue becomes, yes, yes, yes. The issue becomes what contractor, vendor, and or new carpenter, modern carpenter has the skills to actually rebuild exactly what, if it burned down, everything burned down.
Right.
There is an expense to rebuilding in a primitive way, simply because people don't know how to do it anymore.
Correct. Yes.
So, yes, we don't have crown molding and fancy tile or whatever, but we do have an issue with regards to ever having to replace it should it get lost catastrophically.
Correct.
Because of that problem.
Right. And
I
with
think
being
that's-
historical, go ahead, Lori.
I'm sorry. I just think that's where the architect, you know, needs to come into play. You
You
know,
know,
to say, you know, just how primitive is this, you know,
Right.
and, you know, and how, you know, I mean, because Harlan built houses, you know, so
Mhm.
how is this different from the other ones he's built, or what makes it that? I mean, the historic aspect is obviously Harlan, you know, but, you know, I'm not sure, and you know, I've been there, but I can't remember exactly, you know, how historic the building itself is.
Right.
There's
How
a
basic
group
or
going out
detailed it
on
is.
Sunday and on Monday if anybody wants to go. The Sunday crew is going to be a working crew, and the Monday crew is going to be a thinking crew.
Yeah. If you can add to your list, David, it would be great to have updated photos of all sides of the building, inside and out. Just
Okay.
kind of showing us, you know, the flooring, you know, the characteristics inside for interior finishings. And that would be a big help to explain to these insurance carriers what we've got.
We have
Yeah, there
quite a
have
bit of
been multitude of
photographs.
photographs done over the last few months that we can send to you right away. That
Okay,
are
great.
fresh.
Okay, great. And that's going back to Francis's point is, you know, replacement costs, you know, we can certainly go gung ho on replacement costs and what this should be based on the historical value of it. I'm also looking at, you know, on older buildings that have historical features, details, you know, you can also go into functional replacement costs, kind of like thinking of an older home. You know, it's gonna come out a high amount for full replacement costs on an older home that has all these characteristic details, whether, you know, 12-inch baseboards, gingerbread, you know, that kind of stuff. This house doesn't have that. So if something were to happen, whether it's a partial loss, if a tree falls on half the building, you know, we're not talking about going in there and putting in drywall versus plaster. We're talking about finding someone that can go in there and recreate the wood siding that's there. And of course, if you replace it, are you going to pay extra to have that weathered and treated so it looks like it's original to begin with? What was
Well,
there?
the interesting thing is Lori knows the place that cut up the wood originally, so the lumber mill. So we have the expertise, I think.
Yeah. I can
Is
certainly
it still
show
in
you.
business,
like-
Lori?
No.
Right. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want to overstate what,
I
It's a-
know.
it's a shed essentially, but
Right.
my point is to have somebody redo it. I can't just hire some guy off the street to go fix it. He'll put in sheetrock and everyone will be crying about it.
Right.
Well, and it's also the size of the lumber. I mean, lumber pieces today aren't the same widths, and coming from someone who lives in a historic house, and Mitch does insure my house, and there's no way I can do a complete replacement cost on if something happened to my home, because even doing construction at my house just recently, they couldn't even match the size of the siding on the outside.
Right.
So there's going to be that issues, and that's what Francis is concerned about.
Mhm.
If we're going to do that, it's going to take some special milling.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what size those.
And nowadays,
those
is it
are.
available, and can you get it, and when can you get it?
Right. Yeah.
Mitch, I do have another question, and that is about security and just for the liability.
Mhm.
Currently, there are no locks on the doors. There's large windows. There's access points that will get boarded up for sure in the next couple of weeks. But this concern about the historic integrity, and so we have these large windows. Nobody's staying there. Is there any requirements? We did talk a little bit about, a camera maybe and some sort of system like that, but, we have no Wi-Fi.
Right. That's a challenge.
And we don't think we're going to put in Wi-Fi, at least in the next week.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like we talked about, will you have Wi-Fi capabilities? Will you have some electric going to somewhere on the land that you can pull from? Those kind of things. I can certainly go back and say, hey, we don't have traditional alarm systems, but we do have cameras. We do have smart systems, whether that's, a ring alarm posted on a tree or, whatever that's benefiting from your Wi-Fi. That's where I can go back and show, hey, they're doing something to protect the site. And then of course, there's also some security discounts that can be applied, based on that.
Yeah, and then anytime near future, I don't think we will have Wi-Fi or electricity. We could certainly have wildlife cameras to document what's going on.
Yeah.
But how about locks and boarding up windows? We'd rather not board up. We'd like to secure them for sure.
Yeah, I don't think boarding up windows is one thing unless you're trying to protect something. Okay, there are no stained glass as far as I know. Is that right?
Right, no stained glass.
They're just maybe large size windows that you'd have to probably hand do and replace. But no, as long as the security in terms of is it protected from the elements, from winter critters? I would say you're going to have to put some kind of lock mechanism on there. Just to prevent people from hiking and saying, what's this? Let's go inside.
Yeah.
Squatters, whatever. Okay. You're going to have to do the minimum for that.
And what our contractor we're working with has suggested we're going to do on Sunday, in addition to locks on the doors, is to put some wood backing on the interior of the structure so they can't kind of pull boards off, but not total boarding up, but just some security so the windows that are accessible from the ground level won't be easily penetratable.
Right.
Has there been any problem since Harlan has passed away, since there has not been a full-time
Resident.
Thank you.
We do not know the vandalism problems. I can tell you that over the past 3 years, people have trashed it, and it might be raccoons totally, but I don't think so, because there was a lot of food dump places, and so people have been there. And Paul Hasselferter has said he was there on Wednesday and hasn't been there for 2 years before that.
Yeah.
So people are there occasionally, but there's no signage. And how about that, Mitch? Some people on our little committee are hesitant for putting up no trespassing signs. What is the status of that in terms of insurance?
Some carriers may suggest it strongly or require it. you know, I look at it as like you guys have 60 acres to play with. If you don't do anything on the interior, you should at least post on the exterior, just so people crossing borders or whatever, you know, at least you've done something to deter some behavior. Okay. I know you had a concern about, you know, the riverside. There's currently nothing there. So unless someone knew something was there, they just keep on floating by. You know, I don't know
Many
that a
people
sign
know
would
it's
deter
there,
that or
you know.
not.
No, it's a known location. It's on maps. You can look at
Right.
Hollow. You know,
So,
it's on
so
the maps.
I would post something, you know.
What, Joe and David, what is the plan for how far away are we from being more public than we already have been about the fact that the property is getting purchased, and when are we making major announcements about that? Because that would stir
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
It would probably be, it was discussed around November, December, that having a membership, sort of phase 2 membership drive. We've met our challenge grant, our first challenge grant. Now we have a second challenge grant, which is dedicated to maintenance. And so Kim Klein is recommending that November, December is a perfect time for a wider you know, phase 2 of our capital campaign. And it still be determined if it's going to be a membership campaign or just a number 2 capital campaign.
Okay, so, but back to the issue of if whatever winds up getting put up with, you know, ugly, no trespassing signs that are, yeah, whatever, it sort of interrupts the built environment with these nasty looking whatever signs that get put up. I would just make sure that organizationally we record what it is, why it is we put those up there. They could be temporary. We can have a temporary signage keep out deal going, and just when we get further down the road, let's remember why it is that we just did that in a temporary fashion, so that it doesn't become, well, someone told us we had to put those signs up and now we can't ever take them back down.
Right. And that's the intent. That's why I said you've got 60 acres. So even if they're at least, you know, on certain points on the outside lines, then, you know, that may be okay where you don't see it leaving the property, but someone sees it coming in, you know. And I don't know what's going on now with the land. Do you guys have hunters? Do people cross over and hunt on this land? So even no hunting signs or something, okay, that will deter other people. On the insurance side, again, I'm going to treat this like, you know, obviously we've got these 2 structures here. They're definitely not occupied daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, but they should be no different than maybe, you know, a seasonal lake house or cabin that someone would have, you know, in a normal situation.
What it is.
What's that?
That is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, right. So, you know, as you guys set your schedule for visitation, where, you know, you're going once a quarter, you know, once a season, doing your stuff, your, you know, plans, and you know, that's what it is. It's seasonal. It's just a primitive, you know,
Camp.
Yeah, camp, cabin, whatever. The only issue I can see, and that goes back to the historical part, is that I just have to, you know, when I go to these carriers, I explain to them, like, listen, because of the artistic, cultural, historical nature of this, you know, there will never be, you know, central heat and air. There will never be, you know, plumbing lines unless that's part of your guys' overall design going forward. I've kind of told them that the plans you guys have is to buy the adjacent, you know, whatever 40 acres, and that has the headquarters, that has the house, that has the equipment barns, that has the, you know, drop-off point that you guys will use, whether it be ATVing groups to the property, or, you know, I don't know, later on, will you ever put a dock? You know, those kind of things, you know, we just kind of say are in planning.
There is a wood burning stove in it.
Yeah, and that's something, you know, you need to make sure that if it is going to be used, it needs to be obviously inspected and repaired accordingly.
We would make sure it's inspected, and we'll have the appropriate smoke alarm.
Yeah. And I don't, was there
And the fire
also,
extinguisher.
was there, wasn't there also a fireplace usable, whether it be for cooking or warmth or whatever?
I think it's just a stove.
Like a built-in stove?
I'm not even sure if it's built in. I'd have to look.
Okay. And of course, you may obviously for your group purposes, you're going to probably develop some kind of like, pit fire outside or something, or somewhere that,
Right.
groups can sit around the fire and do whatever. That's
See, we have no rules and regulations yet, and not that I'm a rule and regulation guy, but like waivers and all of that stuff, we don't have any of that, which
okay.
before we become a active program.
Yeah.
How about waivers for just our volunteers now? We don't even have that. Any value in that at all in terms of liability insurance?
I think it all goes back to your intent and what the usage is going to be for the property. Certainly, if you've got volunteers, they're not going to hurt you to have those. Even though everyone is understood that you're at your own risk this weekend while you're there, whether you approach by canoe, boat, or hike, the liability is going to cover for the what if. It's for just like your homeowners. It's for the purpose of injury or damage to others.
Any other questions?
So we talked about liability, but and apparently we had not been looking at building and property insurance.
I currently am doing both, but at this time your immediate need was the D&O and then the premises liability for the land. Because you guys weren't yet, what you're going to be doing to the buildings. And I can certainly go back and work on, okay, based on what I see square footage and construction wise, here is what's coming back for actual cash value, functional replacement cost, and historic replacement cost. And then you guys can digest that information and see what route you want to take. On an actual cash value basis, again, we don't really care about market value if there is any, because the land is still yours to rebuild on if something happens. We're looking at how much you want to insure. And if we say the actual cash value of this structure is this, as long as you're within 80% of that, it's your choice to purchase the coverage you want. Okay. We may have to do it in phases or stages through your improvements until we get to, what you guys want to happen with the structures.
I would like to recommend that we only go after the D&O and the liability. And when we have more information about our restoration initiatives, then we seek building coverage.
In the meantime, I can certainly present some options that you guys can put together, and that way you can work with your architects and other resources.
What's your logic on waiting on building coverage, David?
Just because we are going to improve it coming up, and we just don't know, we don't have a diagram of the building even. We do have photographs, but we don't have a layout. We don't have the exact square footage, and so all that's to come. Just
information. We don't have enough information yet, but I do. We don't need a Notre Dame situation going on where a contractor drops a cigarette and suddenly the place goes up in flames. So that would be bad.
That'd be bad.
If we do hire one thing to think about, like is what Mitch was saying, if we do wind up hiring a professional consultant contractor, we could insist that he has builder's risk insurance on his own while he's doing his work, but that will only buy us time for what we're eventually.
And I'll check on that option too. But if the contractor's coming in doing, carpentry or whatever, you need to get a certificate of insurance from him, making sure that he also has his commercial liability insurance. And if he sets the place on fire, then that's also coming from his policy for damage and injury to others coming back to you guys. Okay. Certainly we want to get you guys some coverage. So no matter what happens, you're taken care of, your policy's in force, And then if it's the contractor's fault, then our carrier is going to go after them for reimbursement and subrogation. Okay. But yeah, if you get proof of insurance from these contractors and carpenters, they should have coverage in place for an allowance, for the damage of other people's property. Now, you'll fall into the same trap where, okay, well, we see we burnt the building down. How much was it worth, and can you prove it? Because if they're going to use the same information, I got a square footage cabin of this, regardless of sentimental and historic value, unless you've got that proven and signed off on. That's the appraisal you're going after.
Okay. All right, sorry to keep asking questions.
No, that's
No.
at any time, and even write them down and send them to me.
Lori, do you have any other questions? Any comments?
No.
Oh, do you have any?
No, I'm okay.
What I'll do is I'm going to forward this to our board with the recommendation that we start to, you're going to send me the application, and I'm
Yes.
going to get that approved by the board and get D&O insurance right now. And you're going to send us some quotes by Monday for liability coverage.
Yep. And then again, you guys are in transition phase here. So as we review this, you're not locked into anything. 6 months from now, if we need to change something and move it around to a different carrier or different coverage, that can be done. Okay. The idea is to let the coverage translate and grow with you guys as your intent and purpose become clearer.
Yes.
And you have our website, right? So you have seen some photographs of the building?
Yes, I have everything that you sent me, and I have forwarded that to every carrier so they can understand what's going on.
And Joe, could you send Mitch sort of an overview, or maybe even this weekend get a systematic approach to all four sides and outside and inside? And
Certainly, I can put a folder together of pictures and send it his way.
Yep, whatever you got, I'll take, and then I can use that to translate to the carriers.
In fact, if maybe if you could send something to David and he could forward on to me any real specifics that you want, other than just wide angle photographs or interior documentation, or anything like real specific close-up details that might be
I would
desired.
measure the boards.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to come from, you guys too. If there's certain, like Lori mentioned on the boards and stuff, I can certainly go in there and account for that, but I'm going to be using your architect's information too. For the most part, any photos shown inside and out, current construction materials used, and then probably, a list of what you guys have immediate plans for. Like you will be replacing, these windows, you will be adding locks, you will be adding reinforcements to the door. That's the information I use. Yeah.
Well, the locks and the reinforcement will be happening on Sunday, so that'll be done. There is definitely no plans of replacing any sort of actual structural materials in the near future, if ever, I guess.
Right. And then take a picture of the locks, and if you guys do put up some battery go cams, then take a picture of those.
Okay.
So
that won't be happening this weekend, but in the future for sure.
they what year was it built? 1960s, 50s?
He started in
50s.
1950.
So an easy way to come up with a value would be to use 1950s building material, use the information we have on how to build a building in 1950. The issue there is that he didn't use 1950 standards. He used 1850 standards or whatever it was, but
he probably gets paid $400 an hour or so. If you calculate it's worth.
Yeah, I would assume that's going to come out in your guys' assessment from the architect. He built it in the 50s structural wise, but if he's using details from the 1800s, then that's going to go into your overall replacement cost consideration.
okay.
Because right now we're going to go to Home Depot and try to get something that looks just like it, and somebody's going to have to recreate it, best they can based on sizing and staining or whatever else.
Thank you very much, and please send me the application for D&O.
Sure.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Matt.
everybody.
Any questions, please email me and we'll go over them.
I want to come down and see the Behringer Crawford Museum.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should have a advisory committee meeting up there sometime soon.
That'd be fine.
You know, it's just sort of interesting. If it does work out, we're going to close. We're embargoing the announcement for now, but Monday, 4:30, if it all works out.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Congratulations,
All right,
David.
thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.